Hello once again, race fans. This is Alex Gray. I'm here with Steve Risley. You're listening to the NASCAR show here on the Grueling Truth, where legends speak. We're going to recap the previous race at Texas, where Denny Hamlin got his second win of the season. And we're going to go into some NASCAR Xfinity and Truck schedule changes for 2020, because last week we talked about the Cup schedule changes, as well as some other news.
Oh, what's the big news? There is one big piece of news that is kind of sad to hear. Well, there's actually a couple, but the one big news is we're losing one of the best announcers in NASCAR.
Yep, Darrell Waltrip has announced that he is going to retire from the booth after 19 years of doing Fox Sports broadcasting of races for NASCAR at the end of 2019. He began doing this in 2001, so he's done this for quite a long time. Obviously, I grew up listening to DW. I had a blast listening to him. I love yelling boogity 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 at the start of a race, even if he's not broadcasting when I'm watching like NBC or TNT or something like that. I'm really going to miss him in the booth. I've always enjoyed listening to him, but I know that he's going to retire on his own terms, and I thank Darrell Waltrip for everything he's done for NASCAR, and I thank him for entertaining me growing up, as I've been watching the sport growing up. So all I can say is thank you, DW.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was always such an adversary to Earnhardt when I was growing up, until they became friends late in the career. I was never a fan of his, but when he got in the booth and started talking NASCAR, his voice will be dearly missed. It makes me wonder why somebody would give that. And I know he's 74. I think we looked up his age. I think he's 74, 72. Why he would walk away from it when basically, but I guess the time on the road and away from his wife and family and grandkids and things like that wears on you eventually. But I don't know. Who do we think is going to replace him? Who do we bring in?
Well,
you thought about that?
Fox said that in late June, right about when Fox wraps up their section of the schedule, that's when they should announce who DW's replacement will be next year.
Any thoughts?
Oh, man, I'm not really sure who could replace DW. Oh, man, maybe.
I don't think anybody can.
It's going to be tough, but I'm assuming they'll find somebody. Just the question is who.
Well, you got to have that southern drawl. You got to have that accent and all that part that goes with it, because that's what he brought to the table, and his knowledge of the old school racing, being on the track, and everything he knew and learned, and his wins and his Hall of Fame. It's a tremendous loss for NASCAR for television. That's a big one. Hate to see him go, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had some news on Sterling Marlin. Yeah.
By the way, his grandson Sterling should be making his I think he's making a late model start here pretty soon. But Sterling Marlin released on his Twitter about 6 hours ago, April 4, 2019, that he will be undergoing deep brain stimulation surgery for treatment of his Parkinson's disease. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's back in 2012. So I'm hopeful that, of course, Mr. Marlin will be able to have a successful surgery and hopefully recover.
Okay. Never pleasant news to hear. And Sterling he won back-to-back Daytona 500s, didn't he, in the 90s? Was it the 90s or early 2000s?
It was I think it was 93 and 94 when he won the Daytona 500.
Back-to-back, yeah. Is he the last driver to win back-to-back?
The Daytona 500? I believe so.
Yeah. Nobody's done it since, driving the Coors Light number 40 car, as I believe. Well, no, I think the first year he drove the Kodak car, didn't he? Didn't he the second year he drove the Coors car? I don't remember.
The Coors car, I think, came years later, like late 90s.
Okay. So it was a Kodak car then?
Yeah, he drove for Morgan McClure.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, any penalties or anything happening as a result of the last race in Texas that we need to talk about? I mean, is it amazing how when NASCAR puts its foot down, it says, you cheat, we're going to take the race away from you. Everybody cleans their act up real quick. No penalties. I've not heard any penalties. For what? We're 8 races into it now, or 7 races into it?
I haven't heard any penalties, but I'm still pretty sure it's going to happen at some point this season. There's a lot of racing left.
Yeah. And how far along in, we're what? What are we, 7 races into it? I think there's been 7, correct?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, and we still have only had, really, how many winners have we had? Because I know there's multiple winners from the top 5, 3 or 4 guys. We don't have a lot of winners yet, so there's a lot of points racing going on right now. Because, you got to fill the top 16, and generally that gets up to around 12 or 13 by the end of the year. And you got 3 or 4 guys running for points. But right now, we're a fourth of the way into the season, probably almost a fourth of the way into the season. And we've only had a few winners. I mean, I think Busch has won a couple. Logano's won. There's only been a few multiple winners, and there's not been a real broad base of diverse winners in the series this year. Going back again to, is this the aero package, and is this the thing just favors the big teams?
Well, it could. Of course, we saw a trend last year, and that wasn't the aero package, where, first half of the season it was Harvick, Truex, and Kyle Busch most of the time. They called it the Big Three. And, at the end of the season, they got stumped by Joey Logano, the least picked probably of those 4 at Homestead. So you'll see more winners. I could see Truex getting a win here soon, Harvick getting a win soon. Elliott will get a win soon, probably. Maybe perhaps another Hendrick driver, Jimmy perhaps. But yeah, more drivers will get in victory lane as the season progresses, of course. The short tracks and Talladega coming up soon. So, yeah, you're seeing some early season dominance, though, by especially Penske and Gibbs. They're definitely the teams to beat right now.
Yeah, and again, I just go back to, I think Gibbs has the drivers. Penske's got the aero engineers. And I'm still going to lean that way until they prove me wrong. That Hendrick is in a tough position right now because they don't have the open wheel program. They don't have the ability to engineer like the other teams do, like Haas. And we've talked about this on multiple shows now. And I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I think that Gibbs definitely has the hottest drivers. But I think this aero package may need to be rethought a little bit, and it may not be balancing out as much as you think, because really there's no other small teams really competing at all. Even really, Ganassi Racing is really not competitive. I mean, they run up front in qualifying, but I think Ganassi's always set their cars up for qualifying, and they qualify great, but they don't run great. And you've got 2 great drivers in Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson, but yet their cars just don't seem to be that competitive when it comes to the last 20 to 30 laps of a race. They're blowing up engines. They're struggling a little bit more. But again, I think that they've always been a team that's always sets their cars up to qualify well and put themselves up front and get their recognition that way. So regardless. Okay, we're going to Bristol.
Yep, Bristol, baby.
Yep, here we go. The last great Coliseum in the world as they want to bill it as.
Mm-hmm.
What do we expect? Who's hot here in Bristol? Who are we looking for?
I'd say watch out for Kyle Larson. He came close to winning this race last year. Obviously, Kyle Busch, he's probably the king of Bristol at this point during this time. Those are 2 drivers probably to look out for. Look out for Kevin Harvick. I'd say look out for him. And anyone else in the Chevy camp, I would say Chase Elliott, since he had a really strong car at Martinsville, and I think he could follow that up at Bristol, potentially steal a win. So those are probably my early picks for Bristol.
Yeah, I would agree with you entirely. I think this is the first real opportunity for Hendrick to probably put a win in their pocket. Elliott has run well on short tracks, but do we both agree that running at Bristol is kind of like running at Daytona. It's like you're so reliant on everybody else around you, for different reasons, obviously. One is the pack racing at Daytona or Talladega, and then you got the short track racing where you've got 40 cars bunched up on a half-mile track. Right. If one wrecks, they all wreck too. So is this another race that we expect where, it's unpredictable?
Yeah, I think this is going to be different from Martinsville. Martinsville was very quiet. I think Bristol, you'll see your usual beating and banging this time around. And, you got to be careful with Bristol because one car can spin and, 5 other cars can get collected. It's such a short track when you bunch 40 cars up on a track like Bristol. I went there back in 2005 for the Sharpie 500, the fall race, and I remember, I think Dale Jarrett took out Ryan Newman, and I knew several others got involved too. So that's a prime example of it. Tensions rise here.
Yeah, but I think this is what makes NASCAR fun, though, is when they run these kinds of races where the unpredictable becomes predictable. Mm-hmm. Where, the mile and a half are just, they're kind of just parades. They're kind of semi-banked flat tracks that just kind of allow people to get 5, 6, 7 seconds ahead in front of you. And you got a 14-second gap between first and 10th place, and aero becomes so important on those tracks. Where here it's just good hard rubbing and racing, getting after it. Daytonas and the Talladegas are just like being in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time. You're one or the other. You're one or the other. So I agree with your predictions. What do we have for? We got some. We talked about the schedule changes in the Cup Series. I know you've got some schedule changes now. You want to talk about in Xfinity and Truck. You want to go through those?
Yeah, schedule changes. Let's go through that. All right. So this past week, of course, last week we were talking about the Cup Series schedule changes. This week we're going to talk about schedule changes that just came out for the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. So, two of the biggest takeaways. The NASCAR Xfinity Series will return once again to Martinsville next season. So I think that's really good. That will be a triple header, and it'll be the first ever triple header weekend at Martinsville, from what I'm reading here. Let's see. The Xfinity Series raced at Martinsville just once in the past 25 years. That was July 2006, won by Kevin Harvick. Fun fact about that one race, that was the race Darrell Waltrip finally got to drive the Aaron's Dream Machine, if you remember. Because I loved all those Aaron's commercials he did with Michael. But
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so Xfinity Series is back in Martinsville once again. Great move. I like that. Obviously, of course, ISM hosting the season finale. And then the Truck Series, you got Richmond coming back on the schedule for the first time since 2005. And, of course, let's see here. The newly renovated Raceway will play host to the regular season finale. And the Xfinity Series is set the field of 12 as well. So Richmond back in the Truck schedule, Martinsville back in the Xfinity schedule. I believe Gateway will also host the opening round of the Truck Series playoffs next year. They will share a weekend with the IndyCar Series, first time that I believe they've done it at Gateway. So,
but they've done the shared series with them. What they did at Texas years ago, or they still do it at Texas?
I believe they still do it at Texas. June.
In the fall race in June, they do the fall race where they have IndyCar on one day and they have NASCAR on the next day. I mean, that's a good gig for both of them. They should probably do more of that if they can, although the tracks don't match up. I mean, IndyCar's on a NASCAR track. NASCAR needs the banking. IndyCar, those cars are so fast that you put them on that kind of banking that it gets ridiculous speed, and then you get into all kinds of danger for the drivers at that point in time. So, but they're going to give another try. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. We'll see what happens there. Anything else on scheduling we want to talk about?
Let's see here. Take a look at the playoffs. The Xfinity Series postseason will open up September 18th at Bristol. Friday race under the lights. Then, it'll be Bristol and Vegas conclude that round of 12 with the Charlotte Roval. And then the round of 8 will be Kansas, Texas, Martinsville, and, of course, season ending at ISM. For the Truck Series, the playoffs open at Gateway, as I mentioned before. And then they go to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Canada, the site of the current playoff opener, and then Bristol. And then they'll end the season at Las Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville, and then ISM.
And then it came out sometime this week, and I saw it on Twitter. Earnhardt, Little E, was saying he thought the series should end at Daytona. And I've been a proponent of that for as long as I can remember, that they start at Daytona, they end at Daytona. What are your thoughts on – I mean, Earnhardt came out and made that comment that, in one of his podcasts he does, that he thought that not at Phoenix, but the series should end back at Daytona. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I got my opinions. I want to hear yours first, and I'll give you mine.
Okay.
You don't have any. You don't have any thoughts.
Obviously, well, I think personally that you could rotate the season finale. I don't know if ISM is necessarily ISM is certainly something I didn't expect per se. Then again, I would just go in for rotating it to different tracks every year. One year could be hosted by Atlanta. One year can be hosted by Bristol. One year can be hosted by like Michigan or something like that. Just ideas off the top of my head more so. I can understand if like maybe there's the idea of ending the actual season itself at Daytona, but I'd be more in for just rotating it and try to challenge and mix it up for the drivers.
I think where they need to get it squared away is in the playoffs, as they call them now. I think that they need to diversify, make sure they've got kind of one of every track included in the playoffs, and that gives you the chance. Every driver has an advantage somewhere. Some guys are good. Truex is a great mile-and-a-half track driver. He's strong there. Harvick is a great short track driver. Elliott's a decent short track driver. Kyle Busch can pretty much win wherever the hell he wants to win. I mean, it's up to him. Yeah. Pretty much on that. But I think to end it at – I don't understand Phoenix at all. I just don't get that message. I don't consider Phoenix a big NASCAR town. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it's close to me. I can probably drive down there and go watch the race if I wanted to, but I don't really want to. It's on TV. But to go back to Daytona, and if you want to talk about really making it a crapshoot, because you got 4 guys out there and 36 other idiots on the track, trying to get in their way, I think that's the most fun place to go and say, okay, we'll lay it on the line here. But then you do take away, say, some guy that's led the points all year long or done whatever he's done. He gets checked out on a wreck that wasn't his fault. But I liked Earnhardt's comment about saying let's start at Daytona and let's end at Daytona. So I think the same thing with college football. To me personally, I mean, we live about 20 miles away from the place. I think the CF or the college football championship should be played at the Rose Bowl every year. It's run to the roses. I know the Kentucky Derby kind of has that. They already own that, but we can come up with some term. But let's go to the Rose Bowl, and everybody heads to the Rose Bowl, and you play there. So having a home and everybody's going for that home, I think right now would be a good message. I think NASCAR's on a good path, heading back in the right direction. I think they're regionalizing a little bit more, bringing back some of the small tracks and getting more involved more regionally than they are nationally. So, yeah, it'd be good to see. But I would love to see it end at Daytona.
Yeah, and mentioning with the tracks, there is an update involving trying to get NASCAR to return to the Nashville Fairgrounds. From the Tennessean, this was shared by Mr. Bob Pockris, that challenges at the Nashville Fairgrounds, MLS Stadium project potential roadblock for this project. If I can get this to load. 2 roadblocks have emerged between Speedway Motorsports and Nashville Mayor David Briley about bringing a NASCAR race to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. clashing with plans for a new Major League Soccer stand, which Nashville is getting an MLS franchise. I believe they start playing next year. Briley's administration has not seen details on how the upgrades necessary to bring NASCAR to the fairgrounds won't be financed, and the feasibility of a major upgrade to the racetrack remains questionable since the soccer stadium project will replace a building so close to the track that the current operator says he'll have trouble putting on races in the future. Despite those major questions, a top SMI executive expressed optimism about the company's talks with the city. Speedway Motorsports owns 8 NASCAR tracks, including Bristol Motor Speedway. As we know, Bristol Motor Speedway and SMI have been pretty much trying to work to bringing NASCAR back to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. There's now an issue because they're building an MLS stadium literally right next to it. There's a link here on the Tennessean here. So possible solution to financing question appears to be on the table with state legislation that would redirect tax revenue generated at future NASCAR sanctioned races to help pay for upgrades at the racetrack. So hopefully they can get something fixed there. Really want to see racing back there. I think it's a great track. Marco runs there now. Speedway Motors, as of right now, they could potentially bring Xfinity and Truck there, but hopefully they can figure out this issue and get NASCAR back at the Nashville Fairgrounds.
And what are they trying to bring Cup racing or this Xfinity racing or truck racing?
I think right now just Xfinity and Truck, and then maybe sometime down the road they could bring the Cup Series there. And it would be cool because that's where they're going to start hosting the award banquet at the end of the year now for the Cup Series at Nashville. So I think it'd be kind of fitting if they could do that.
So the award banquet's leaving Vegas.
Yeah, we discussed this on the show a little while back.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you're right. And so no more burnouts on Las Vegas Boulevard, where they blow up their tires and blow up their cars. So yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure exactly what they'll do burnouts. I think we discussed that too, where they could do burnouts in Nashville. But I thought I'd bring that up with Nashville Fairgrounds. And then other piece of news here involving substance abuse violation with a Truck Series driver. This was posted on April 1st, and I promise this is not an April Fool's prank. This is legit. NASCAR suspends Truck Series driver Austin Wayne Self for substance abuse violation. He'll have to participate in NASCAR's Road to Recovery program before being reinstated. He drives for AM Racing, which is owned by his father, Tim. Leaving a statement, AM Racing respects NASCAR's decision and will follow their directions. They said in the statement, quote, "We expect Austin Wayne Self to return to the seat as quickly as possible. AM Racing will continue to operate as normal with a determination of a driver lineup set in the coming weeks. We expect to emerge from this challenge as a stronger team," which could pretty much explain why Darrell Waltrip Jr. has actually been driving this 22 truck the past couple of truck races as well. Austin Wayne Self, 66 career starts in the Truck Series. 5 top 10 finishes and 1 top 5, which happened at Daytona in 2017.
Well, take care of yourself. You got to get better. I mean, you got to be safe out there. I mean, of all sports in the world, where you don't want to be not full at full capacity, it's going 200 miles an hour around a racetrack. You certainly don't want that.
Right.
I had a question for you. In the final 10 races, the road course, the Roval, was that in the playoffs last year, or was that just something that happened in mid-season? I can't remember.
That was a playoff race. Elimination.
So we do now. Yeah. So we now do have a playoff race in. Well, second year now. We have a road course in the playoff race, which again goes back to giving everybody an opportunity to succeed at what they do. Looking at the 10 races, anything surprise you in the playoffs here? I'm looking at the playoffs right now. They started the Southern 500. They moved that to September 6th, which is generally Labor Day weekend, isn't it correct? Which is where that race has always historically been run. Mm-hmm. Then they go to short track. They go to a mile and a half super speedway. They go to Talladega. Then they go to a road course. Then they go to a mile and a half. And they end at ISM in Phoenix on what's really pretty much a short course too. Do you think that's a good representation of what the season looks like for these guys for the playoffs?
Could you repeat that again?
No, I cannot possibly repeat that again.
All right.
Looking at the tracks that they're using for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They've got Darlington, which is a brutal racetrack to race on. They got short track, Richmond, Bristol. Vegas is 1.5 miles, I think, isn't it? But it's a super speedway pretty much. Then they go to Talladega. Then they go to the road course. Then you go to a kind of a flat 1.5 miles. Then you go to another kind of super speedway, and then you go to another short track and another short track. So they're pretty much favoring the short track drivers here in the playoffs. Anything about that? Any comment on that at all? I mean, it's too early to talk about it right now, but anything to talk about that?
Well, again, I think this is more of, this is what a lot of fans, even Dale Jr. seemed to be high of interest in this idea of more short tracks. I think a lot of fans want short tracks. I think people like Dale Jr. and others do want short tracks on there, and I think NASCAR is listening, and they're going to go in that sort of direction. And, of course, I'm also hopeful that people will also attend those races and pack the seats.
Yeah. We haven't seen many tracks sold out. I haven't. I watch on TV every weekend. I tape the races. I'm sure you do, or watch them, and, they're just not selling out. Has TV just gotten oversaturated by the whole process? It's too easy to watch it on Fox Sports or NBC or, whatever?
I think one thing NASCAR needs to look more into is streaming, because more sports are starting to do that now. Streaming is becoming more, I don't know if I should say mainstream, because now I'm using the word stream too much, but online streaming is becoming big. NASCAR is starting to lean more towards that as well. And, of course, obviously, you can watch races on Fox Sports Go and the NBC Sports app as well. So it's more access, and not to mention how NASCAR also has a lot of broadcasts on cable networks like Fox Sports 1, NBCSN, and even back then when Speed Channel was around. Because I remember when I first started watching, I didn't have the Speed Channel yet, so I couldn't watch any of the truck races, and I just had to go on NASCAR.com and go, oh, Steve Park won the Fontana truck race in 2005. He actually did. So just an instance, but yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about? We're getting ready for the race. We'll come back on Sunday night, I'm assuming, post-race, and do a show and wrap up Bristol, which is always just a fun track to go watch on TV. And, they generally do. Actually, here's a funny story. I worked for Pfizer for 25 years, and we sponsored the Viagra car with Mark Martin for 5 years. So I had access to passes and tickets. So I actually, at the time when Bristol was sold out and you couldn't get into Bristol, I actually was able to get 2 tickets and traded my 2 tickets to buy myself a trade-off with the guy for a puppy Vizsla hound dog. And I gave him my 2 tickets to Bristol, and I got a Vizsla that we had for 16 years. And I'll never forget that, that we were able to do that. But that's how big Bristol was at that point in time. But I think now you go to Bristol, and you're probably going to be able to walk in and buy tickets at the gate and walk right in and see it. So,
the other thing is, I know they kind of messed around with the surface, and a lot of people didn't like that too. A few years back.
Yeah, well, let's finish up with Bristol. Is it a true groove? Is it a 2-groove track now?
Yeah, I think so.
So you can run high and low, because it was always, you would see guys coming out of the pits of Bristol, and they would actually brake to let somebody pass them so they could get down into the inside groove on the restarts. And has that kind of gone away there?
Not really sure, but I'm going to keep an eye on that on Sunday.
Yeah, that's something for us to watch, and we can talk about that Sunday night, is to see what happens. But I know if you get on the outside at Bristol, if you don't get the jump on the restart zone, you're going to fall back 5, 6, 7 positions real quick, because nobody's going to let you in. Because everybody in the lower groove is just backing up and packing it in. So, but I remember one time last year, I think I was watching Chase Elliott run, and he actually broke and let somebody pass him so he could go in out third. which means he started behind the leader on the inside line. So a lot of strategy going on there too. Any updates on the qualifying before we head out of here?
NASCAR is considering returning to single car qualifying for draft-like tracks. Of course, you don't really need to change anything when it comes to a track like Bristol or Richmond because it's a short track. It's not really more draft dependent. But Steve O'Donnell and NASCAR, they are considering bringing back single car qualifying.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. I like the pack qualifying. I just think they need to figure it out. And I like the restrictions they put on it. Like if you don't get a lap in, you move to the back. Even if you're in the top 12, you jump back in the back. So we talked about that last show too. So I don't want to be a dead horse there either. Anything else we need to talk about? Who are you picking?
Yes, my pick to win for Bristol. Okay, so I've given this a little bit of thought, and come to think of it, this driver won back in the fall. He's looked pretty strong in the one car so far. I'm going to go a little bit out of left field, and I'm going to say Kurt Busch wins. Forgot to mention him earlier.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick. He's a great driver, and he's a good short track driver. I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick. I think Harvick is getting pretty angry at not winning this far into the season yet, and he is a ornery driver that will move you out of your way and will battle you. And he's got great equipment, and I think he's feeling like I need to get a win under my belt right now. So I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick on this track.
All right. Yeah, that's a good pick. Harvick won there in the fall of 16. So
yeah, I mean, he's just got to be honked off that he had. This is about as long as he's gone into a season without posting a win, and he's got great equipment. And I think that I think he's going to make a statement here this weekend in Bristol, and get himself in the playoffs, and then go work on his car and get it ready to go, and he must win another championship. So that's my pick is Kevin Harvick.
All right. Sounds good.
Anything else?
I think that's it, man.
All right. So we'll be back on Sunday night post-race, and we'll wrap up.
You bet. All righty.
All right. Sign us off out of here, buddy.
All right. Guys, thank you guys so much for listening to the NASCAR show here on The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. We'll be talking Sunday night about Bristol and the Food City 500 from Steve Risley and myself, Alex Gray. Signing off. We'll see you next time.